Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here this week to talk about a little episode called Home Again, Part 2. It's episode 725 of Adventures in Odyssey. And Andrew's got something to say about it.
We were such a big fan of the first one. We just loved that episode.
For those of you who didn't listen to the last episode, who are you and why?
Yeah. What are you doing here? Why are you in my room? Get out. Go listen to the other one and then come back. Once you come back, it's all warm hugs and roses, but just don't expect to appreciate absolutely anything about this if you haven't heard our previous review.
Yeah, so this is an episode that first aired December 15th of 2012, a week after the previous one. It's also written and directed by Paul McCusker, just like the previous one. It continues to, because Avery Awards are given to multi-parters, a 2-time Avery Award winner episode.
I mean, I get it is important for the plot. And we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it. Cast-wise, our only new member of the cast is Rudolph, who is voiced by Dan Hagen, who we are constantly talking about now because they just pull him for everyone.
Yeah.
The voice of Archie and Jacques and the other Holstein, and anytime Odyssey needs a voice, apparently, in New Odyssey, which I don't mind. He does a good job. He doesn't sound he keeps the characters very distinct.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not complaining. It is just... Yeah, I feel like it was like, oh, we've got another cast member to talk about, and it's someone we've already covered extensively.
Oh, it's Dan Hagen.
Yeah.
We know you.
Yeah, I know. It's always fun when you start to learn the names of bit players in Odyssey.
Yeah. Maybe that's the sign that we should stop. I don't know. It's certainly some sort of sign.
That it is.
Maybe we've become more of an authority within the community with the expanse of our knowledge and our platform for our voice, perhaps.
Yeah, but we will still get emails most episodes telling us, you got something wrong, or
True.
You missed this little thing that actually makes it good. And to most of those emails, I do not say, but I think, no.
You see that thing that you appreciated? Not for me, man. Some people like sauerkraut. I do not like sauerkraut. This episode has definitely some sauerkraut in it.
Also of note, this episode, the current user rating on the AIO Wiki, 92%. 1% down from last episode.
Which makes zero sense. There's nothing redeeming about part 1.
Yeah, whereas part 2... I think 92% is a solid rating for it, and I think part 1 should have
88.
That's so much higher than what I was gonna say. I was gonna say I don't know, 60 at best.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, as far as what we would rate it. But all of these scores are inflated. What is...
Sure.
Is 100% the perfect Odyssey episode?
I'm sure there are none.
Which one's that? Yeah. We gotta really reevaluate the scale. We have almost 900, more than 900 episodes?
More than 900.
More than 900 episodes.
Right out Revelations 3, I think, was number 900.
Yeah.
So we're past that now.
Speaking of which, as of now, the new album, Slippery Slope, just came out, and I did listen to Team.
Andrew, why?
I was curious, to be honest with you. I was just
right.
really curious,
Well,
and I figured we were going to have to cover it.
Say nothing more. I think we're covering that one in the fall.
Yep.
I say that knowing full well that this episode probably comes out in the fall as well, but
it's probably somewhere
around.
around.
After we wrap up Green Ring, that is unfortunately near the top of our docket.
Yeah, it's just got the fresh, it's new.
We signed a contract with the devil, Phil Lawler, and now we have to cover every Maury episode until either we or they die.
It was, we talk a lot about the unforeseen upsides of starting an Adventures in Odyssey podcast, but this was definitely an unforeseen downside.
Yeah. Connecting with random people on the internet. Surprisingly, cool upside that I was not expecting. Downside, I am locked into a battle
Yep.
with Phil Lawler in which if I don't do this,
He wins.
I die? Or worse, he wins.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Look, someone's got to keep this man accountable.
yeah, certainly.
That's up to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod to do so.
I support him in all of his successes, but I do not look upon his failures with rose-colored glasses. Those glasses are brown and dingy.
So yeah, with all that being said, we're going to roll the promo for an episode that has nothing to do with Phil Lawler.
Next time on Adventures in Odyssey, Eugene has gone missing.
Seems to have disappeared.
Disappeared? Unfortunately, Eugene's wondering what's going on too.
Where am I, and why, pray tell, have I been tied up?
And of course, Connie's questions are always the same.
When did all this happen? Where was I?
Everyone's questions will be answered on the next Adventure in Odyssey.
Someone needs to write better scripts for Chris.
Yeah, that person's definitely slacking.
She's just like, and Connie's got, she gives a series of 3 things, the third of which, and Connie's got, is asking the same questions. What is happening? Why? And then she just says, these questions and more will be answered. Excuse me, Chris?
We are, moving your jaw with our hands and spoon feeding you mush.
Well, I'm just like, come on, guys. Like, Chris deserves better.
She does. She's a character. She's been, presenting Odyssey to us for, yeah.
She is
Odyssey.
Well, yeah, I was going to say.
Chris is schizophrenic. That's a
But,
canon.
like, her and Katie Lee are the only actors or people, even people behind the scenes included at this point, who have been with the show consistently over its run. Everyone else has either died or taken a break.
Yeah. Maybe Katie Lee should take a break. Although, I don't... she seems to really enjoy it.
She does.
Everything,
and she does a good job.
Yeah, she does a good job, and I'm sure that she relates to the character of Connie so much that, like,
She's got to feel ownership over that. I mean, you've been playing the same character for, like, almost 40 years.
Yeah, and that is one thing I will say about this episode that I did like is when you have no kids involved, this cast are very much... They are playing their characters so well.
Yeah.
Like, Wooten is being Wooten in every scene. Eugene is being Eugene in every scene. Connie's being Connie. Penny's being Penny. And Wit's being Wit. And they all interact in a way that makes sense for those characters at that time. So the chemistry is definitely there. Except for with Joanne, unfortunately, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, although I would say that even that improved this episode. Like, I have... I'll just get ahead of myself here, but like I've got some like frustrations, especially towards the beginning of the episode. But I think this episode is way better than the previous one, and actually like it does the broad strokes of the things that I would want from this. Like if they were like, "Hey, we're doing a final episode with Jack and Joanne. This is the episode," I would be like, oh, that's pretty satisfying. Like, that works. However, the previous episode works so far against it that it ends up, like, tainting this episode. And I think this episode has to deal with some stuff. But it is so weird, the huge valley that is part 1. Because we're coming off Labyrinth part 3, which we loved.
Yep.
This episode is solid upper mid-tier Odyssey.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the last episode is just in the basement.
Yeah, that last episode was just bad.
Like, it's behind a floor-to-ceiling wardrobe with a skeleton.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's hidden there. I mean, it's behind the back panel that the skeleton's behind. They gotta find the skeleton and then decide, no, there's something else hidden here. And it's Narnia? Yeah, no,
How did we not talk about that on Case of the Secret Room? They go behind a wardrobe and death is there instead of Narnia? How did we miss that opportunity?
I mean, hindsight is 2020, and we covered that episode in 2018. So I suppose we've got even better vision.
I think it was 2019. No. How long have we been doing this, Andrew?
Too long. Circling back to the sign.
Yeah. Oof.
Oh, but it's fun, and yeah, I can't help my gross, like, it feels like eating a new menu item at a fast food restaurant, listening to the new Odyssey, where it's like, oh, I can force myself to get excited about this because it's a supposedly new experience with some positive upside. But you're not gonna get your mind blown really anytime.
No. But yeah, I think I am sensing at least that I'm a little bit bigger on I'm a little bit more into this episode than you were. But regardless.
Oh no, I was talking about the Slippery Slope album.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that there's no appeal to me there.
Yeah.
But anyways, this episode, it kicks off with the picnic happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's Connie and Penny and Wooten, and they are picnicking near the construction at Trickle Lake, which is funny.
Yeah, no, it's really bad, and like construction jokes in TV shows are kind of meh, I feel like, but in an audio drama, it translates so well. And like you could really feel for Connie because she's kind of goes in on her complaining about the construction sound and wanting to go for a walk.
Yeah, this right. It's a bad first scene.
Mm-hmm.
It is Penny holding Connie hostage.
Yep.
So that she can take her to Jason's cabin.
Yep.
For motivations that are extremely unclear and never interrogated.
No, certainly
at least in
not.
this episode.
Yeah.
Nor is Penny taken to task at all, which I find is odd.
Because she is definitely the bad person in
Right.
this episode.
Right. Well, and like Penny's like a new Christian who's figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
So you could very easily like make this a lesson, but instead they're
It's
like
about Connie making assumptions.
right.
of
Instead, the
other
whole
people
episode is about assumptions, and so we have to just ignore this elephant in the room. And so, like, yeah, they do this whole thing where Penny knocks over the water and is like, oh, we can't go hiking until we fill up the water. Let's go to cabin 3 to fill up the water. And then, like, oh, cabin 3, like, isn't, no one's there. And so
Yeah.
they're just like, they're sad. And Connie's like, all right, let's just go on a hike now. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's just like, and Connie makes a comment right at the end that hints to the fact that she's like starting to figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
But up till that point, man, this is a long scene, and Connie,
It's
like,
absolutely brutal.
like, nothing they're doing makes any sort of sense. It's like, so that's great scene in Labyrinth Part 3 in which Mycroft Thug walks into the room and Dale just like spouts off some gibberish, and because Mycroft is like in on it,
Yeah,
he's just like, oh, okay, and
can
walks
keep your
out.
phone, yeah.
And Dale goes, nothing that I just said made any sense. Why did he buy that?
Yeah.
And is he just that dumb? And in this episode, Connie is just that dumb.
Unfortunately, even though she gets it later, it's not after it is literally blended up and then put in her mouth on a spoon and then hand motion chewed.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. And then, anything else?
Not
from
a
this
great
scene?
look for Connie, no.
No.
But it's funny. My note for this scene is, this is truly awful, and I don't feel that way about the episode. But going
Right.
into it from the previous
Yes.
episode, that was how I felt. I was like, oh no, this is gonna be so bad.
On listen to, this first scene bothered me less.
Okay.
Because on listen 1, I was going in with everything from the previous one.
Yeah.
And then when I was listening through it the second time and knew that this one turns out okay, I was like, all right, this scene is not as bad as I thought it was, but it's not a good scene. Like it's unpleasant.
No.
But it's not like it doesn't make
It's not
me like
world record
recoil
Odyssey
into
bad.
myself like the previous episode.
Yeah. Oh boy. Boy howdy. So the next scene is Eugene waking up in the back of Jansen's Jewelers.
Right. He had a dream that he was Spock.
Yep.
Call back maybe to the album artwork and where they're all dressed up like Star Trek
Star
people.
Trek characters, yeah.
It's
As pre-Nova Con.
on the air or
Yeah. Back on the Air,
back on the air.
I believe is the
Yeah,
album.
you're right.
And I have listened to that at least 3 times.
Yeah, that's the album immediately following Blackguard, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. And I think there's a BTV episode on there that I really enjoyed, but now I'm just speculating. Anywho, Rudolph and
BTV
Sebastian
someday.
are
That would be good.
what?
So we need to do BTV stuff someday.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, that was
We pitched that like early on in the show, and then have just never gotten around to it.
well, it's not plot centric, and talking about bit comedy can be kind of difficult, but
Right. We should at least take a stab at it.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, and I think covering BTV with people that don't have a ton of experience with Odyssey is
Could
good
be
and
a fun
palatable.
could be a fun guest episode idea.
Yeah.
I could run with that.
But yeah, no, they've also switched to putting out new BTV episodes in the Adventure Club, which because of this episode, and we'll talk about this now, I suppose. Because of last episode, how poorly I felt about it, I was like, okay, so 2012 is the drop off, right? This is where Odyssey goes bad. And, goes bad is a mighty aggressive term, but it definitely does change. And that is with the implementation of 12 episodes a year going to the Adventure Club.
But that doesn't happen until 2014, right?
The club?
Yeah.
I guess it's on season 8 now, so yeah.
I'm just going to verify this, but...
I think this album, and then there's one more after this, and then they
Correct.
go.
Because the next album is not Ties That Bind, or is Ties That Bind? Ties That Bind, I think, is the last album before they go Odyssey Adventure Club or Adventures in Odyssey Club then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. But, and as we previously described, they definitely had some plan up to this point with the Green Ring conspiracy and everything introduced in that. So they knew kind of what they were doing, and things were falling off. And so I'm wondering if there's more in New Odyssey that
The club
the
club launched the beginning of 2014.
Okay.
So I was right.
Yeah.
January 2nd, 2014.
Yeah, that checks out. I'm wondering if there's more gold in the New Odyssey era in the Adventure Club that we just haven't heard because it's hidden behind a paywall and, are ignorant to it. I saw a BTV episode and I was like, I wonder what a new BTV episode is like.
Especially minus the B.
Yeah. There's no B. No B.
I don't know. Is the B Bible or is it Bernard?
It's definitely literally Bible within the context of the show, but no, the B is Bernard in my heart.
Yeah,
it will always be. Rip.
Anyways. So we find out these brothers, Rudolph and Sebastian, and they were working together on the diamond scam while also working at a jewelry shop. This plot makes no sense.
No, yeah, this B plot is truly horrendous.
It's fun for the scene we get later.
Yeah.
But the setup last episode and the continuation this episode are baffling, where it's like, okay, so there's been a bunch of people going around swapping out fake diamonds for real diamonds when people aren't looking. Mm-hmm. That part was established and made sense. The guy who's doing it looks like Eugene. Mm-hmm. That made sense. The FBI are looking for him. So Eugene walks into a jewelry store, looks like the guy doing that, and asks the same questions because he is trying to find out if these are real or fake. Mm-hmm. And it would make sense for the jeweler to be like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah.
But instead, the jeweler is one of the scammers.
Yes.
And throws him in the back and introduces him to the other scammer, who then accuses him of trying to steal their scam.
Yes. It's truly horrendous.
It's just convoluted.
Such bad criminal work. And I get it. It's a kid's show. You can't show too much, and you certainly can't paint the criminals as too smart, because it's got to be solved in, less than an hour. But
yeah, it just feels like they had a good, as much as we ragged on the last episode from a setting up a mystery thing, they laid good groundwork, but then where they decided to go with it didn't actually make sense.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing where it's like they had some setup, but the build-up was non-existent because I couldn't take anything that was happening in this, B-plot seriously.
Right, well, and they do
because of all of the tropes. And,
Yeah.
Eugene later just pokes holes in their plan.
Oh, yeah, well, it's this great thing, because, where the scammers are like, we're going to take 100% of your profits, Eugene, for, scamming all these people using our thing. And he's like, I wasn't scamming. And the one brother's like, yeah, we're going to believe that. And the other brother was like, no, I think I do believe him.
Yeah.
And then they start to talk about, hey, we're just going to, turn you in to be, this fall man for all this. And then Eugene's just like, yeah, but I'm just going to say that, you guys were here. And he's like, well, then, we're going to, leave you in a room in the middle of nowhere. He's like, why do you keep telling me your plan?
Yeah, it's really terrible.
Yeah. It's just, right. It's so, yeah. But on the other hand, we have them walking through the woods, Connie, Woot and Penny. And Connie is has now figured out what they were trying to do with Jason. And she's like, come on. It's not here, wait.
Whatever trouble Jason is in is none of my business, is
Right.
what she says. Which is a good Connie line. And she confronts her friends and takes a good stand, good Connie moment in that respect. And
then she's like, but and think of your plan, Penny. It doesn't even make sense. What are the chances of bumping into Jason?
Yep.
Jason?
I
love it. I love it so much.
It sounds like he got catapulted through a bush.
Yes.
He
stumbles into them.
Yeah. There's leaves rustling and everything. It wasn't I see somebody up ahead. That might be Jason. We're hiking on the same trail. This makes sense. It's hiking on a trail, and then out of not trail, comes a strange man who lives nearby.
My headcanon, he was peeing behind bushes. He went
That
off the
checks
trail
out.
to take a leak. He's coming back onto the trail.
Probably horrendously embarrassed.
Yeah, and then Jason shows up and is just like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" And there's I understand. I cannot tell if it is conscious or not. But this episode is telegraphing a Connie Jason romantic subplot. Does not seem to play to my understanding, does not play out, is not a thing that's followed through on. But is very much being and I don't know if McCusker is writing and directing that, or if it's just the way the actors are choosing to perform it, or if no one's consciously aware. But there's this whole Connie being very excited to see Jason and also very bashful about it. That's seems to play very much into the thing that so many fans want.
Well, yeah, and it's character-wise super accurate, and maybe they don't know. I'm not sure if Katie Lee knows, whether or not Jason and Connie would get together, even if, say, Paul McCusker or Phil Lawler knew, or had plans for such things.
Yeah, it is unclear the degree to which they are self-aware here, but it does feel like it is very much planting those seeds to be explored down the
They
line.
Odyssey loves planting seeds. And, you know, I'll walk behind him and peck him right up. I mean, they're planting a lot of seeds with Buck and Jules, and I don't know what that's gonna turn into. I mean, like, are we ever gonna have a relationship in Odyssey between children, like, under the age of 18?
I don't know. I would be because of the demographic, maybe not. But it is weird that Odyssey hasn't done more like dating episodes.
Yeah, what they don't think that like kids pretend to date, because they do, especially between the ages of 8 and 12.
And even beyond.
Yeah, I've been pretending to date people my entire life.
Yes.
I'm currently in a long relationship with Orlando Bloom. It's going well.
But it is just like, it's a funny thing where it's like there are episodes that kind of like dance around it. Like, I mean, like even like your early like Jack and Donna stuff, which is also like these are older characters. So it's a thing that Odyssey maybe doesn't have anymore. Although I guess Buck and Jules are kind of older characters.
They're like
within.
16.
Yeah.
I mean, they're portrayed as in high school, and they talk about high school things and college things.
So yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's ground for them to do. That being said, I don't necessarily want to I don't know that I'm going to appreciate Focus's take on a dating episode.
No, certainly not.
At least interested.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's always the option that the episodes are bad.
so much of me growing up was being like using Odyssey as a big outlet for this, but also other things of being like heavily invested into like romantic relationships between fictional characters and being so interested in that and never talking about it because I was like afraid of like, I don't know, being like people calling me a girl or gay or whatever. It was like so much of that was just like being a like closeted enjoyer of romance stuff.
Yeah, no, that doesn't fit the hunting and the shooting and the
like
rough and tumble
whatever,
testosterone.
like the stuff I'm supposed to. But like, and one of like the huge things that like my good friend Nate, not Nathan of the show, but another friend, maybe a future guest, who knows, and I like one of the things we bonded over is both having like caring a lot about like romance in storytelling.
Yeah.
Despite being like guys who weren't supposed to in school. And like obviously I grew out of that. But you hear that, folks? Yeah, it's still summer when we're recording because there be cicadas.
Yeah, and they are loud. They're getting mad. They know they are about to die.
That is probably true.
Can you blame them for yelling?
So anyways, I projected a lot of that onto Odyssey because it was one of the pop cultures I consumed, and it flirts with flirting.
Yeah, all the time. And they almost exclusively do it with people that you are very familiar with in platonic situations. Yeah. So, like, it always kind of feels safe in the way that they do it.
Well, and like I should, for the whole like thing about going on about the dating relationships, obviously we get quite a few relationships that we experience of the older characters in the show. I mean, we've obviously covered Connie and Mitch in depth.
Yeah, arguably too much in depth.
And like a great like dating relationship throughout the show that's dealing with like a lot of that stuff, I think, in a good and mature way. And like someday we will cover, Eugene and Katrina stuff better, and we could cover Penny and Wooten stuff. Like it's not like the show doesn't deal with these topics. It's just like, and it maybe makes the wise choice of just staying away from it for kids. Just because, I mean, you do have to like market this show to the parents of children. Who maybe don't want those things to be discussed.
Which is very unfortunate in my opinion, especially for kids on the upper age, like people that have listened to Odyssey and are on the cusp of growing out of it. Like, there's no reason that a world like Odyssey can't tell lots of different types of stories to perhaps different age groups, be spanning from 8 to 14 or something like that instead of 12. Like, we can really branch out and appeal to a wider audience if we're willing to be bold in that respect.
Yeah.
But they are not.
Anyways, Jason is happy to see Connie, and Connie's happy to see Jason.
Yeah, that also. That as well.
And then Wooten and Penny are there too, and are like, "Hey, you look." Wooten's got some great lines in this, but
Wooten does.
where he's just like, "Yeah, you look." You know, I like this look better than your crate look. And he's like, well, I was undercover. And Wooten's like, and under crate.
And under crate.
But yeah, and Connie's
under the cover of crate.
I think you just made the joke worse, Andrew.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. I've tried to turn it into a different joke, which is classic bad joke move.
But the whole thing here is that, like, is Connie, like, feels awkward about this whole thing and doesn't want to, like, interrupt Jason's time because she does genuinely want him to have that because she was told to keep her distance and, like, wants to grant him that. Meanwhile, Jason has been going stir crazy being alone in a cabin with God for, like, a week.
Yeah.
And is just like, people?
You want to hang out?
People.
You want to play games? We're going to play games.
Yeah.
What do you guys do? You guys play games?
Yeah, and Wooten's just like, okay, yeah, we can go back to your cabin. And he's like, what cabin? He's like, cabin 3. I know this because I'm a mailman.
No. No, Wooten says Penny 3. Wooten says cabin 3, and Penny just yells, he's a mailman. Like, she covers his butt with the unrelated tie that was not actually how he discovered his house in the first place.
Right, and it also does not help Jason.
Nope.
There's no way Jason's buying that, but whatever.
You know, certainly glossed over for the sake of time and
Yeah, and we
convenience.
We then, like, there's this extended thing where, like, they're then trying to leave, but Jason's like, or like Connie's like, okay, like it's time to go. After they've been like hanging out there for a while, and we cut in on a story already in progress. It's good. Like I like this so much. I like the unsurprising. I like the 4 adult friends hanging out and playing games and talking.
I've never done that once.
Maybe watching a movie.
Yeah.
Why would this apply? Why would this appeal to Dylan Weaver?
I don't know, man. That doesn't sound like something you've ever done. Dylan only breaks bottles in his spare time. Just throws them against a wall. You'd see the piles of glass.
So then yeah, Jason's like, no, like let's keep doing something. How about dinner? You guys doing dinner? And Penny's like, sure, come over to our apartment, play games.
To share a meal. What do you guys do? Or Jason says like you guys hang out a good bit, and he's like, what do you do together? And Penny's like, oh, you know, we get together and we play games and we bring games, and you know they say games a lot with no clarification. They say it like 3 times in a paragraph, which is tough, but no like board games, card games. I mean, I'm sure they're open to a variety.
Yeah, I think they're fine. I feel
but
like
games could also mean
I have people
other
over
things.
for like game nights.
Yeah.
Like just generic games. Mm-hmm. But because board games and card games are both, but no video games, no drinking games, you know. Very, very limited view of games in my mind, but that did not seem weird to me at all.
It just has to be lemonade. Have you? That's a homeschool thing that I've done. I've played beer pong with water. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I've been around while you've played beer pong with water. You
Yeah.
did it at youth group events.
Yeah, we did do it at youth group events too. Yep.
When I was a leader and you were a student.
There was that time. There was that time. Boy. You had so much authority over me.
I mean, I should not have.
No.
You were in like 8th grade and I was in 11th grade.
Yep.
But
thankfully, the trend seems to be going away from that.
yeah, I've made that part of my mission. A
man on a mission.
So there's this so the other scene then we go to is Joanne getting just kind of filling in wit about the whole thing going on with Eugene.
Well, so
Is there anything else in that scene? I mean, that's the scene.
yeah, so there's a scene with Eugene and the Crooks, right? And
We've already
we already talked about that.
Yeah. We're slightly
and-
out of order, but we're
Yeah,
fine.
but my note at the end of that scene is, how long has Eugene been gone? Like, Katrina hasn't called or anything.
yeah,
like, this
yeah.
is existing in isolation.
And then immediately,
Yeah,
it's
Whit's on the
getting
phone
off the
with
phone with
Katrina.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
No, I
and then
picked up
Joanne
on that
walks
too.
in. Yeah, and Katrina hasn't seen him, so they have this catching up, and, you know, Joanne thinks that Jason's on a case, and Eugene's helping him with the case, and yeah, they catch each other up on, you know, the plot of the episode.
Yeah, yeah. And then we jump back, and Wooten's won 3 straight games of Clue.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, all right, it's bedtime. Jason's like, well, what if we watched a movie, guys? It's still early.
Yeah, it depends on the movie. What movie do you think they'd watch? What movie do you think Jason would watch?
I don't know.
Would it be a spy movie?
That seems too on the nose.
Yeah, no, he probably likes some weird genre.
No, it's probably like The Princess Bride.
Oh,
You know they're
yeah.
watching The Princess Bride,
Yeah,
right? That
at
movie
least
is
once.
perfect.
That's like the pre-roll. That's
Focus
the
on the
default
Family
movie.
loves to reference. Like, Adventures in Odyssey loves to reference it.
Yep.
It's a perfect 4-quadrant movie. Mm-hmm. I genuinely love The Princess Bride.
Oh no, yeah, I'm very happy that it's a movie that I developed such an affection for at a young age that actually turned out to be a good movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Where I was like, oh great,
one
I
of the
don't have to
good
feel
ones.
bad about liking this.
Yeah.
Same thing with Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Mm.
Where I was like, this is a great movie. I love this because I'm a kid and it's a kid's movie. And then I grew up and I was like, it's cool to like this movie.
Yeah.
Even better.
Yeah. And then Connie has this great moment of being like super perceptive and just being like, look, like you were like talking to Jason, like, hey, I thought you were supposed to like, you know, be off on your own here. You're
not awfully alone for
Yeah.
somebody who
you keep hanging out with people. What's up with that? Mm-hmm. And she's just, yeah, and he talks about like it being, you know, or she maybe even points out like, yeah, it's hard to like go from nothing to being alone.
Mm-hmm. Well, Penny brings it up, kind of says like, yeah, solitude is difficult or something like that. You know, it must have been a big change. And then Jason jumps in and is like, oh, that's something that my dad said yesterday.
Yep.
And they kind of go down this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Penny talks about, I don't know, some art analogy where she's like, you know, I have to sketch before I start painting.
Yeah.
And Wooten's like, oh yeah, I jog before I go deliver mail on 10 Mile Road, which is a perfect joke.
Yeah, it's
10 Mile Road is incredible. I love it so much.
Is that from something?
No, it's just the nonchalantness with which he says
10 Mile Road.
10
yeah.
Mile Road.
Yeah.
And you just immediately, you can picture the road.
Yep.
It's a good joke because he's talking about like warming up to go deliver mail on a
Yeah.
road that is literally named
Yeah.
for being 10 miles long.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
It's a top-notch joke.
I love it so much. And also just like the no attention being drawn to it. And then it's followed up by another great joke, which doesn't feel like super Odyssey-y of a joke, but like I think is great, which is Connie being like, or like when I have to like clean up tables before people come in. Wait, that's not really the same thing, is it?
Yeah, no.
Like,
moving on. But
It's like, right, it's once again, it's a good joke. It's like the, you know, 3 people in a row and they look over each other's shoulder and then the last person turns around and there's no one there. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's like a classic joke construction, but it really works for me.
No, and I think that it, like I said, is, I think the thing that I enjoy the most about this episode is having that kind of joke structure with these characters that are all so familiar and are all batting 1,000 as far as playing their character and riffing off of each other. You know, seeing videos of the voice actors interact while they are recording is very interesting because you get the idea of how much time and energy they put into making their characters, at least the reoccurring ones, you know, your Jess Harnells and your Will Ryans and Katie Lees, just get along and they just sound like people.
Yeah. And so it's just, it's just good. And then Jason leaves to go. I guess before I talk about the next Jason scene, I just want to like hit on something that I really like thematically for these episodes, which is like Jason is like struggling to like spend time in prayer in the Word, and is not told he's wrong for that.
Yeah,
which is
a surprisingly
kind of
good take.
Amazing.
Yeah, no,
for Odyssey,
it's a great take.
Like, I love that nuance so much.
For his character, yeah.
Because we even talked about it with the Labyrinth, where it's just like they're allowing this guy to be like, yeah, I'm struggling a bit with my faith right now, and I still believe everything, but like I'm out of the rhythm of it. And this episode, continues to be out of the rhythm of it, and it's not just people coming by and being like, man, just do better. It's like they affirm him in his like not feeling it at the moment.
Yeah, well, and like it taking some time to
like, and it
doing
not being
the right
a thing
isn't a flip switch type change.
Right. I love that nuanced approach that doesn't feel like most media bothers to take that route on things, much less Odyssey, much less in 2 episodes that we have been like, especially the last episode, we're really ragging on.
Yeah.
Like, it is a surprising level of depth, relatability, and I think genuine value to the listener that I was very pleasantly surprised by.
Yeah, and the quality of the advice that comes from, Connie and Penny and everything, like they're very supportive, and they're there, and they're empathetic. They're like understanding and validating his feelings as opposed to just suggesting corrections and solutions. I very much agree with you. It is really important, I think, to normalize the ebbs and flows of kind of your relationship with God, and understand that like if it's similar to your relationship with any other human, because you're a human, it does change over time, and there are times of closeness and times of distance depending on contact and what your relationship looks like.
Yep.
And with some people you can pick things up right where you left off, but a lot of times, especially if they were really, really important to you for a time, if you leave them and then come back, it takes time. Yeah. So I'm really glad that they're giving that attention.
Yeah, I'm just, it makes me happy that...
I'm glad they're doing it for Jason,
Yeah.
God Light. I'm very, very glad that they're doing it for him.
Yep.
Not just, relegating that to being a peasant problem, a Wheaton problem or something.
For sure. Oh, it's so good that they're like letting
and
this
even
character...
Wit, doesn't Wit validate? I mean, Wit predicts the problem.
Yeah. And then affirms Jason later when Jason's like, I'm not gonna like, I was wrong to like jump into this with both feet. I'm gonna like take some time, and spending time with friends is also valuable to me.
Yep.
Which like,
yeah,
just inject that into me, like
some platonic friendships.
But just like acknowledging that like that. Yeah, like it's okay to, just like have relationships and stuff that you value in your life. Like, it doesn't have to be like 24/7 Jesus in that same, like, as far as like relationships go.
Yeah.
Like, you can have relationships that like don't have to revolve around that.
Exactly.
I just, it makes me happy. And then we get a scene. So Jason leaves and just kind of goes, I guess I'm going to go see my dad if you guys are ready to go to bed. And I'm like, man, Wit is up late, apparently, because it seemed like you guys were up late, or you all just get tired very early. Like, maybe it's Odyssey
it's
and
like
Jason.
10 o'clock.
Right, it might be like 9.
Yeah.
Like, I that is kind of my canon, is like, Jason's like, yeah, we can watch a movie. I'm up till midnight every night. And they're all like, no, it's Odyssey. We go to bed at 9.
Yeah. I mean, Wooten's got to deliver mail, so he's getting up at the booty crack of dawn.
And and so Jason like goes, and then he like walks in, and it's Wit and Joanne still up. And they're discussing the whole Eugene thing. And it's a great scene where it's like Whit and Joanne are standing there talking, and Joanne's kind of like, oh yeah, and Jason was gonna, or Whit's like, well, maybe Eugene wound up with Jason, and Jason's like, who wound up with me? It's just like, it's good. And then the Joanne Jason reunion is just sweet.
It's so great. And especially the next day with Jack over the phone.
Oh, I mean, the Jack thing's great too, but like I think just like Janet Waldo and Townsend Coleman are just like doing a really good job. There's the chemistry that we were missing last episode with Whit just comes back in full force here with Jason. And I think Whit's chemistry in the scene gets elevated as a result.
Oh yeah, no. He's definitely getting shot, like getting the benefits of the shockwave of chemistry there.
Yeah. And so Joanne's just like, there's like a weird thing because they just have to like cram some plot into it where Joanne's just like, oh, well, if you're back, I guess we'll have to rethink closing down the shop. And I'm like, huh? Why? And then Jack's like, oh, you were going to close the shop? And she was like, well, yeah, but now maybe not. And Jason's like, has like his light bulb moment. Another weird, not Odyssey joke.
Yeah.
That I think is like decent, but feels wrong, which is like, the text notification goes off on Whit's phone when Jason gets his idea, and Jason's like, I just had an idea, and Whit's like, no, that was text.
Yeah, it was really funny, and it sounded like my phone text notification.
I thought I also got a text.
I thought I got a message.
Yep. But yeah, and then Jason's like, what if I like ran the antique shop? And Joanne's like, I mean, I'll have to check with Jack, but I really like that idea. And I'm like, hey, Joanne, me too.
Yeah,
I
big
think
fans.
I think that's a great way of like integrating him back into the town. Is like, hey, what if he ran it? And she's like, are you qualified? He's like, well, I impersonated someone, and there was also the vase thing in the labyrinth.
Yeah, he was an undercover antiques dealer in Belgium, I want to say. Yeah. For a couple months, which I feel like he's a method actor. He definitely learned something about antiques, and Whit definitely has at least one book on antiques. Yeah, that will help educate him.
And then Whit's thing is he got a text from Katrina which also texting an Odyssey, Whit texting an Odyssey. We hear him texting throughout, and it is very clearly a phone with a slide-out keyboard.
That I love.
So,
I'm very
so
okay
Whit
with Whit
and
having,
Katrina
as long
text.
as he doesn't have, he can have a flip phone, but it's got to have the slide keyboard because I think
that means it's like not a flip phone.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't flip. It's a slide.
Yeah.
Is it a slide phone? Is that a term?
Yeah. I mean, I guess there were those ones that like flipped over onto the keyboard.
Yeah.
Where the keyboard didn't slide out, it like flipped up. So sure, we'll say he has that just for you, Andrew.
Okay, yay! I like this bone. It's a tasty bone. There's even some meat left on it.
But yeah, and then so they're gonna go. So Eugene's car's been parked outside at this antique shop across town, and the meter's gone, and it's like that's not very Eugene. Yeah, and so they take off to go investigate. We cut to the antique or the jewelry shop where Eugene
Sebastian
is
and Rudolph,
right. And this is the whole, why do you persist on telling me your plans?
Yep.
And they're like, I guess we'll have to like get rid of you in some we'll throw you in some abandoned building. Because and then
make it very clear that we're threatening you with death so we can manufacture some tension that will be immediately let out.
Right, because Whit and Jason walk into the front of the store.
Yep.
Jason immediately recognizes these guys.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. That was frustrating.
The other guy walks out. And because it is just a weird thing of like, they come in and they're like weirdly accusatory, where it's like, oh, it's weird that you're open this late. And they're like, we're having a sale. He's like, with no one guarding the counter? He's like, we've got cameras. And I'm like, wait, you're going in guns a-blazing just because you saw like a car parked outside. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then Jason's like, the brothers, whichever brother walks out is like, do I know you? And it's like, I run an ice cream shop. He's like, no, the other guy. And Jason's like, no, unless. And then the other brother walks out, and Jason goes, we meet again.
Yep.
You're the whatever it is, the Karazinski brothers. You're famous for being thieves. And
The famous thief brothers.
and they're like, oh, yes, you're Jason Whittaker. I know the first and last name of every person who puts me behind bars.
Yep. Which, I mean, I suppose if he's a good criminal, it only happens like once or twice, but
Yeah. And then...
did he personally do it? Like, I don't know what his
Yeah.
relationship is there.
And then Jason goes like, do you still have the alarm under the counter? And I'm like, what do you mean, do you still have the... Huh? Like, that just didn't make sense.
Oh, he's talking about the silent alarm.
No, I know. But why does he phrase it like that? Because it's like he doesn't know about them in
Maybe
this
they
shop. I don't know how
disconnected
long
it?
they've
I don't
had
know.
this shop. It's just weird. And so Whit goes for the alarm and presses it, and the guys run at Jason, and he, like, comic book sound effect takes them down.
Yeah, presumably just, like, smacks their heads together and then, Three Stooge pokes them in the eye and then just pushes them over a case full of jewelry.
It is another thing that just, like, doesn't sound particularly Odyssey, but, like, Christopher Deal must be having a blast doing that.
I mean, it was hilarious.
I loved it.
Like, I thought that, it was jokey in a way that, when they show violence in Odyssey, when it's very realistic, definitely catches me off guard. So, like, I wasn't surprised that was the route that they took.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and then...
It was funny.
Yeah.
I initially was like, oh, man, that's lame. But then I was like, oh, okay. It had to be short. It couldn't be much. This episode has so much plot in it.
Yeah, it does.
Because we still get the next scene where Eugene and Connie and Jason and Whit are there, and Joanne walks in when she's on the phone with Jack.
Oh, but before that, we've got the great scene between Connie and Eugene, where Eugene's recounting what happened, and Connie's like, wait, Eugene, are you saying you assumed something? And I was like, oh, thank God. It's so good that
Praise be to Yahweh.
pulled that from the previous episode, and we're like, oh, we can have like because Eugene was like, so like talking down to her and lecturing her, and it just felt great for Connie to be like,
Told you so.
yeah, you assumed too, Eugene. And then Eugene's like, couldn't be me. And Jason goes, maybe it was Rudolph. I hear he looks a lot like you, which is another joke I really liked.
Got him.
But then Joanne walks in with Jack on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have a nice scene where they're all talking, and I assume there was something going on where they couldn't get Alan Young into the studio.
Yeah.
That they did this. But I'm really glad that that they made this work.
His voice sounds good over the phone, and you give him a little Scottish accent. And I don't know, just hearing Jason talk to Jack feels so good.
It does.
Like, Odyssey really is this big thing that stretches like 30 years and has like all of these memories when characters and voice actors like, Townsend Coleman talk to somebody that they talked to 20 years ago intermittently.
Yeah, and Alan Young hadn't been on the show since Passages at this point. And this episode marks both his and Janet Waldo's last appearances on the show. This is truly their goodbye. They both passed away 4 years later. And it's just like, I'm glad that they were able to do this as a send-off, knowing that the Labyrinth was supposed to be that, and that it kind of had to get reshuffled due to some health issues. And I'm just like, I'm happy with how they managed it. And I'm so glad that this second episode makes it feel good. Because if this episode felt the same as part one, it would be such a bummer for those characters to go out on this.
Yeah.
But because they like step up their game for this episode, it doesn't feel nearly as sad.
No, yeah. And it's a lot more satisfying because, realizing what the role is with Jason in New Odyssey up to this point, him moving back into town, and like you said, it contributes to the world building in a really good way that I think is exciting for the next generation of Odyssey. And like, what does New Odyssey look like? what does a post-Wit Odyssey look like? Is there going to be Odyssey post-Wit? Like, you're
Jury's still out.
Yeah.
But
I was happy with this episode.
Yeah.
I think I've said just about everything that I had to say.
I feel similarly. Like we've played it out, but I liked it. I'm glad that they recovered.
I'm sad though, because this is the last
I,
Jack and Joanne episode.
Yeah. As we go out here, this is we're bidding goodbye to them, as characters on this show. But the beauty of our show is that we'll cover more Jack and Joanne in the future, because we don't do things in strict chronological order, folks.
Amen.
So you can.
We would not have made it if we did.
No. So you can look forward to that in the future. And anything you feel like plugging there, Andrew?
I'm a big fan of the new Lord album. I'm not going to be the only one to suggest that. It's like a sunny pop album about being at the beach, and that's pretty much all it is.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, definitely enjoying that this summer. What about you, Dylan?
No, I don't have anything I'd like to plug here. So with all of this being said, next week, we're going to be talking about episode 837, Out of the Picture.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. Follow the podcast at Wadfam Chalk Pod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Home Again Part 2 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.